Okay, so welcome everybody. I already see there's quite a bit of people here waiting, so I don't want to delay this any longer. I want to get straight into this because I've been really excited to show this off. So, welcome to this presentation I made. It's just me and my voice currently. I did not want to put myself on video just yet because because I'm messy, but otherwise this is a full presentation that I'll be talking over. Hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, please save them for later because hopefully this will answer everything you guys want to know. And I mean, pretty much everything you guys would be asking. So, with that out of the way, this is the Kamen Rider TCG I've been teasing for a little bit. I've been working on it for a little bit too. I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and without any more delay, you guys might be wondering. Well, first off, you guys might be wondering, hey, wait a minute. Isn't there already insert Kamen Rider card game on cardboard game here? Yes, obviously. There's a Ranger Strike, there's the most obvious, which is Gombarizing. There's also the other obvious thing, which is Battle Spirits. But there are things about these games uh, well, I'll explain it. So Ranger Strike was an old card game back in the early 2000s, and it died out pretty quickly. Of course, you can see there's an O's card there, so it died out quite a while ago. I think there's still a cult following about it, but Ranger Strike is still isn't really around for all intents and purposes. There are like translations to it, and I tried learning it, but I don't know. I don't think I really get the rules for it. Gonbarizing, obviously, it's like one of the most popular card games that has to do with Kamen Rider on it. But Gonbarizing has to do with the arcade game. It does not. You can play these, I guess, if you want, but they're focused more specifically on the actual arcade game. And then Battle Spirits is the one I've seen everybody bring up. Everybody always says, hey, Battle Spirits already did it. There's already Kamen Rider in Battle Spirits and stuff like that. Well, Battle Spirits isn't focused on Tokusatsu. Yes, there are Kamen Rider cards, there are Kamen Rider decks, there are Kamen Rider sets. You can play a full-on Kamen Rider deck if you wanted to against the rest of the Battle Spirits card game. But this is something I want to focus on specifically on Tokusatsu. More, well, of course, Kamen Rider, but Tokusatsu, and that's it. That's just the main focus. No Battle Spirits, anything around that. Just Kamen Rider, and well, Toku later. So with that out of the way, you guys might be wondering, why me? Why Marcosatsu? What do I have the credentials for to make a card game, let alone a game for a lot of people to play? Well, I've been playing board games slash card games for a very, 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 very long time. Probably more than I've been watching Tokusatsu. Probably longer than I've been watching Power Rangers. On the far left, I won a tournament for Magic the Gathering. I won a lot of locals. On the far right, I've won Two-Headed Giant games. I won a lot of games, tournaments, local in multiple cities. When it has to do with Magic the Gathering, it's just Magic on here, but I have played Yu-Gi-Oh for a long time. I played Yu-Gi-Oh competitively. I've played Yu-Gi-Oh back when it was first starting. Back I think GX was like the era I was in the most. But I've still been into Yu-Gi-Oh, like even past Zeal, even past the Rush Duel stuff. Like I think I know my card games. I have a whole collection of Magic the Gathering. If you want to see my actual personal deck that I play with, that I won games or that I won tournaments with, it's right there on the screen. You can find it on Moxfield, just to show I do have credentials for this. And on top of card games, no, actually, to continue on with card games, I've played Duel Masters, Kaijudo, well, I guess that's the same thing, Weiss Schwartz, Digimon, Pokemon, pretty much all of the big name card games you can think of. I have experience in them. I at the very least know the basics of the card games. Both other things like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and even Duel Masters for a little bit. I have played them for a while. And even past card games, I have a whole selection of board games. So I've been playing games just all across for like my whole life. So I feel like I know a little bit about card games. I know a little bit about board games. I think I know just a little bit about how games work. Not that much. I'm not saying I'm like good at it because I might even mess this up a lot, but I do know quite a bit. Oh yeah, Vanguard. Obviously, I played Vanguard too. I remember getting one of the first starter decks when it came out. It was like a blue one. I played it, but I don't really remember much of it. So aside from that, yes, I played a lot of games. That's my main case in point. So next up, what do I want out of this card game? What do I think would be cool for a Kamen Rider card game? Well, first off, the first three main focuses I want out of this is number one. I want this game to be really easy to learn, simple to learn. You know, like once I show you the field, once I show you the actual card, you will see. Oh, hey, I think this is simple enough to get into. The field itself, I feel, is really special because it's like four zones. It's simple to just be like, oh, you put this there, you put this there, that's it, nothing else to do. And when you actually see the cards themselves, you might just take one look at it and be like, oh, this card does this, and that's it. There's big numbers on that you can visibly see. There's the card art, so you can easily tell who's what, and you'll be like, oh, obviously this card does this. So yeah, obviously easy to learn. And I guess on top of this, obviously, I want it to be fun. I mean, I don't have to even write that down or mention it, but hey. Anyway, so it's easy to learn. My second main focus are having many ways to win. So when I mentioned I played lots of board games, one board game I personally really like is called Villainous, Disney's Villainous, and its main goal is that everybody has a different win condition. And I felt like that was one of the most fun things I've ever played in a board game at the very least. And I feel like that can easily be translated into a Kamen Rider focused game because, like even though every Kamen Rider wants to defeat the villain, there are lots of ways to go around it. So one of the many ways to win is alternate win conditions. I do have an obvious like get your opponent down to 0 HP kind of win, but other than that, I think many alternate win cons is the way to go with this. And my third major focus is to have lots of lore, flavor, and themes. Because, well, let's face it, Kamen Rider has a lot of lore, it has a lot of themes. I think this is something that I really want to get into, but I'll get to that in the secondary focuses. So secondarily, I really want this game to be a 4-player free-for-all. And I know that's probably not feasible at the start. At the start, it's most likely gonna be like a 1v1 duel, just like Yu-Gi-Oh! But if it gets to it, I really focus these cards, I really focus these decks, I focus this game to be strictly on a 4-player free-for-all. For one, I think just like the social aspect of having four people battle it out as their favorite character, I just think that's really cool. So obviously, I was gonna go with the 4-player version, and secondarily, I really like multiplayer games. I do like 1v1s. I do like having like the best player, the most skilled out player out of two people get up the top. I like that too. I mean, I've played Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively, and I do like it. But I also like having this a little bit unique, and the only other 4-player card game I can think of is, well, Commander from Magic the Gathering. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Kinda does it, but they've mostly only focused on tag duels, and they only recently started a new format for 4 players. I think even Vanguard had a 4-player format at one point. But either way, it's not very common, and I would like this to be, well, kind of stand out just by having a focus on the multiplayer aspect. Secondarily, I want to have good satisfaction regardless of game state. Whether you're 10 steps ahead or you're falling behind and you have almost no resources to go with, I want to make sure that you can come back from that. I want to make sure the game can be balanced. I want to make sure that everybody has a fighting chance, because what's more Kamen Rider than being down and then getting right back up to fight the monster already again. And then thirdly, I want you to really feel like your favorite character. That's where the theme comes in. If you see a Kuga deck, I want you to be like, oh, it's Kuga. I get to transform a lot, and if I train myself enough, I will become Kuga Ultimate. I will be able to just hit the battlefield. Every opponent's like, oh my gosh, it's Kuga Ultimate. We're about to lose. We got to figure this out. You know, I want you to really make you feel like it. And I'm only sticking to Kuga at the moment because I'm so excited to show you guys the rest of the decks and the rest of the flavors, because it's not just Kuga, but like maybe in the future, if we ever get to like, for example, like if we get to, oh man, I didn't even think of an example. If we get to Agito, I want you to make you feel like you're playing Agito, and that if you get to Shining Form, you're able to outclass the rest of your opponents. Or if you get to Ryuki, I want you to feel like you're in this battle royale, and you have to really power yourself up and stuff like that. I know all that sounds like super just together and generic, but that's only because I'm trying to keep things vague for the rest of the presentation. But you guys will see in just a second. Fourthly, community based. I want the community, well, I guess my community, to really be part of this, because after the first expansion, my next ideas have to do with like, hey, I want this deck to be voted on by the community. I want you guys to think of what the next Kamen Rider focus should be. I want you guys to tell me, hey, this should be fixed. This isn't balanced. Maybe it would be better like this. Maybe you could tweet me and be like, hey, I don't like this card. Maybe you should change it. I want this character to be in the game. Pretty much like that. You know, as long as we have communication, I want this to be community driven. But you know, at the same time, also don't want cards to be overly stupid, broken, or anything. So I'm sure you guys get it from that. And lastly, I want this game to be fast, but I'm not putting. But the fast part isn't like a major focus. That's why it's the last thing, because a multiplayer card game is not expected to last like 10 minutes. I would like it to, but if it can't, then hey, at least it's a fun game. And I mostly wrote fast because if you guys are Magic the Gathering players, you guys know those games last a long time. They can go up to an hour just for one game. And don't even get me started on a 6-player game, you know? Like, those games can go on forever. And that's not what I want. Like, sure, I mean, I had fun with hour-long games, but at the same time, you could play like maybe 3 rounds of this in like an hour, maybe 5 rounds of this in like an hour. So I just want this to be quote-unquote fast. And by quote-unquote fast, I don't mean like win in one turn in Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, let's just have a chill time, beat each other up with our Kamen Riders, and win. And I put these third focuses here at the bottom because they're just part of the core ideas that I have. Where if you guys played other card games, I believe Bakugan does this, where a lot of it focuses on life decking or milling or decking out, however you want to say it. And I personally do not like that. I think a lot of players do not like not playing their decks, you know, like mill decks, discard decks. Like, I'm sure you want to play your cards. So I want this to be fun, and I want to make sure you play your cards. That way your opponent just doesn't say, hey, you can't play your cards that you spent $100 on anymore, you know? I want you to play your cards. After that, no instant wins, which means in Magic, there's a lot of 2-card combos where if you play these 2 cards, you win the game. Your opponents can barely respond to it. There's like very little window of interaction. And if they can't interact in that like 2-second window, you just win the game. And I'm used to that because I'm a competitive Elder Dragon Highlander player, and I play those decks. So I think what we should do is just have a balanced game as we can with these powerful cards, but still somewhat balanced. I know Yu-Gi-Oh does that too, where they have like OTK decks. I mean, I've been a Fluffle player for a very long time, and I've been playing a lot of those OTK decks. So I'm sure you guys understand that that we shouldn't have that happen. There are alternate win conditions that almost feel like, oh, I just win the game, but I want to have ways around it. Like, let's say you do play Kuga Ultimate. It is a very powerful card. You deserve to play it. You feel like you're ultimate, but your opponents still have a fighting chance, you know? Like, I at least want to have that. And I think that should be it. I think those are the first, second, and third things I want to have. Oh yeah, obviously. And the last thing, no set rotation. I've never met a single trading card game person who has ever said, "Hey, set rotation is cool." I've never met someone who said that. Like, once we get into the decks, I'll talk a little more about it. But these decks will basically be the main core of the game, and you will be able to mix and match. But the decks that I made are like the core and the things I focus on the most. So, with all that out of the way, what is this card game? What's the name? It has to have something attached to it, right? Like what's the branding? What are we trying to get out of this? What is the name of this card game? So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Super Tyson. I'll give you a second to soak it in. Super Tyson has been the name I've been sticking with for quite a while because, for one, obviously it comes from an inspiration from Superhero Tyson. And, well, it's a battle. It's an all-out war. I have a little subtitle where it's Super Tyson, the all-out card game. The all-out card war. So, hey, I think it sounds pretty cool. It's a little like it's a little cheesy. It's a little stupid, but I think that that's the fun of it. I really legitimately think it's cheesy. And besides that, shout out to Gia for the design on this. He made this really cool. I really love the logo, and I think he got what I wanted out of this because there's a four-sided shuriken here. Because it's not just Kamen Rider, guys. It's not Rider Tyson. It's not Kamen Rider card on the game. It's Super Tyson because maybe if we get to it, we can include Super Sentai, Ultraman, Garo. I have ideas for all three for those three on top of Kamen Rider. So, I think this is the name that we'll stick with for a long, long time. So yeah, like I said earlier, it's not just Kamen Rider. If it was just Kamen Rider, then it would be like Rider Fight or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, Super Tyson, that's the name. I love it a lot. I love the stupidity of it, and that's why I want it. And now, so with that, let's actually talk about the cards. Another second to soak it in here. There's quite a bit to get into, but like I said, just take one look at the card and you might be like, oh, well, okay, I think I get it. The first two cards here that you'll see, the one on the left and the one in the middle, are going to be the quote-unquote main cards. These are the equivalent to creatures, the equivalent to minions, the equivalent to monsters, whatever you want to call them. Here, these cards are called legends because Legend Riders, Legend Rangers. Tokusatsu uses the word legend to talk about previous Kamen Riders, previous Super Sentai characters. I think even previous Metal Heroes, they just call them legends too. So we call them legends. On the far right is everything else, where it's where they can be like your sorcery, your instants, your reactions, your assists, pretty much like that. And you guys will obviously see influences from other card games. The Magic influence is obviously there, but I also try to get a little bit of Vanguard, a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh, a little bit of Kaijudo, a little bit of White Schwartz, just a little bit of everything. Even a little Battle Spirits here and there. I think Battle Spirits, I really like the way they put their numbers, so that's how I wanted it to just a really pop out number on the top right. I know Battle Spirits are on the top left, but I think top right is just the easiest to fan cards for me. So anyway, these are the templates. This is the card. If you really wanted to, you could screenshot this and cut out the card template and use it as your own card. But we'll get more into like how the card looks in a second. So on the far left is your basic legend type, where you just play the card, and and well, you summon your cool Kamen Rider there. In the middle is your Super Legend type, where I really wanna I really wanna spoil it already, but like in the middle, the middle card are like the really big legends. Like these are like the biggest things you can summon onto the battlefield, and I wanted to make it look cool too, which is why they have an extra little like flag at the bottom. So I'll get to these more in depth in a second because you see the cards here. How does the game actually play? I'm kind of happy about this one because the rules can be simply just stuck onto one like one page here, and that's it. There's not much else you need to know. I guess there are like a couple extra rules that I can talk about to go more in depth with, but these are the main things that I would that I would introduce you guys to. So obviously the big thing on your screen is the battlefield. Like I said, it's just four zones: your leader zone, your deck, your discard pile, and where you put your XP. And all of that we'll get into in just a second. So the main rules, well, overall, the rules is where your deck is really small. Your deck is only 30 cards. Like I said, I wanted to have like a medium to fast paced game, but that also includes one leader. So on your field, your leader will be on top, and your deck will be 29 cards. In total, 30 cards. Everybody has 20 hit points, so in a multiplayer game, you have 20 points, your opponent has 20 points, your other opponent has 20 points, and your last opponent has 20 points. You get those down to 0 and you win, of course. One copy of a card per deck, because that's just the Magic player in me that I personally love having a singleton format. I've been seeing way too many card games have like a copy of 3 or a copy of 4, Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe Chaotic did that too. But to me, I think one copy of a deck that just needs one copy, I think that can lead to a lot more powerful cards. Because in this game, Pot of Greed could be viable. Like you could draw 2 cards for free, and that wouldn't be broken because almost everything's broken. And there's not really a limit to do all that stuff. So let's say you sit down with your group of 3 people, whether they're strangers or friends or you met them online. You draw 5 cards. Each of you draw 5 cards. You look at your hand. You discard any card you don't want, and then you redraw that many. After that, once everybody decides, oh yeah, and that rule is kind of like a mulligan. It's the equivalent to a mulligan. So if you don't like your hand after that, you can like put it to the bottom and then redraw those 5 cards. So after everyone draws and you decide to keep, we introduce the first keyword. The keyword meaning predict. Predict meaning you get to look at your top certain amount of cards and then put the rest at the bottom. This was a house rule my friends and I made when we were playing other card games, and I personally thought it was a really cool way to stick with the hand you want. That way you don't brick. That way you can actually play the game and you're like, okay, this is the hand I chose, the hand I want to keep with, the hand I know I'll have at least a decent amount of resources with. And then you go ahead and play the game. So in multiplayer, the 4-player free-for-all, the first player can draw and the first player can attack. In a 1v1 situation, the first player does not draw and they cannot attack. Pretty simple stuff. The summoning mechanic is something that I wanted to really stand out with, and I wanted to feel like Kamen Rider, but also at the same time not feel too restrictive. You can consider this kind of like a summoning sickness. I think Runeterra does something like this too. I think Gwent does something with these kind of action cards. But when you summon a legend here, they are going to be considered traveling, like you are traveling to the battlefield. They're not there just yet, but it's made known to the rest of the team, to the rest of the opponents, that this Kamen Rider is about to hit the battlefield. So you'll turn it sideways to show that they are traveling, and they don't exactly arrive on the battlefield until the next turn. And of course, there are ways around it. There are cards that say this card does not need to travel. The next card you summon does not need to travel. So there are ways around it. And the way to win, as I've been saying, you get your opponents down to 0, or you can go for your alternate win condition. And the phases, I'm also really happy with because it's super simple. It's just 4 phases, and 2 of them are really the only ones you need to know. So, draw phase, you draw your card. Planning phase, that's the equivalent to your main phase. That's where you look at your hand, you play a card you want, you can put one face down, you can get it ready, and then the battle phase. Obviously, you fight. That's the end. Once all the fights are over, once all the attackers and defenders finish their fighting, the turn ends. That's it. Next turn. See? One, two, three. You did that. Good. You're done. Move to the next turn. Now the card types. I already have at least one new type outside of this, but for the most part, these are the main 3 types that you'll see in this card game. The legend type, again, the equivalent to the creature or the monster or anything like that. The reaction, which is an equivalent to an instant or maybe even a trap card, and assist, where it's also the equivalent to like a spell card or sorcery, anything like that. But these aren't exactly tied to their names because an assist card can be placed face down, and the card might say this card can be activated only if yada yada during the battle phase, and then you automatically activate it. So again, you're just planning your phase, your turn, and that's it. So next up is the introduction of the very first card you guys will see in Super Tyson. This will be the debut of the very first Super Tyson card, the official Marcosatsu Super Tyson card. And again, you can take a second to really to really soak it in. This is Conrider Kuga Mighty Form. This is the very first legend that we're showing. So I know there is a lot of text, but like I said, the numbers are big. It should be legible. It should be easy to point out. The name obviously at the top. There's Conrider Kuga. Okay, so let me break this down. The card name, the super type is Kamen Rider Kuga. Its title for Kuga is Mighty. If he has a subtitle, it would say right after that, and you guys will see in a second. So, for example, this card is Kamen Rider Kuga, comma Mighty form. But there can be a card that says like Kamen Rider Kuga, comma Mighty hyphen the ultimate hero, something like that. It could be Kamen Rider Zeronos, comma the one who was forgotten subtitle. So that's how the namesake works. But how does the resource system work? On the top right, you're gonna see the number 2 there, and the number 2 is yellowed out because it's special. If the number is white, that means you can use this card as a resource. You can use it as mana. You can use it as your energy. But in this game, we're calling it experience, XP. You as a con writer gain experience. Duh. I think that's just in flavor. If the card, so if you want to use it as experience, you would put it down in your backline as an experience. And then you can use that experience on the top right to summon other legends, to play other cards, to play other assists, to play reactions. But if the number is yellow, that means you cannot use it as experience. So you can only play this card as a legend. You cannot put it down in your XP zone. That's how the resource system works. I got this mostly as an inspiration from Pokemon, because Pokemon uses that energy not to summon, but to play its attacks. So that's mainly what it is. And plus, I think a resource system is really necessary to have in a trading card game. Otherwise, you just play everything out, and then you become Yu-Gi-Oh, and then it becomes you lose in one turn. So there's that. Well, obviously the card art. Oh yeah, and I do want to explain. The very first card I ever made had fan art, but everything after that, I specifically only used stills from the show, promo material, anything from Toei. I did not want to use fan art because for one, that's kind of a mean move. You do not want to. You probably don't want to do that. I mean, unless you're like really trying to figure out your card game. I guess sure in your private time, but since I'm showing this off to everybody, I want to keep this as I can, because I will get to this in a second about like the Toei and copyright stuff. But the card art is focused on whatever Toei has out. This one is specifically from the Figurized line, so it's from Toei. It's their toy. I feel like I'll just clip that here real quick, and there, card art. Underneath the card art, you'll see what did I put here? Subtyping. So this Conrider Kuga card is the leader. He will lead your deck. He's also a legend type. He's a creature. His other subtype is that he's a hero. Those don't come into play just yet with this expansion because there are only hero and villains, but I do have ideas for other types like monsters and anti-heroes and stuff like that. Just keep it in flavor for Kamen Rider. They don't do anything just yet, but it's trying to future proof some things. And then after that, the most interesting thing is Form 1. We'll get to that in a second. Now the ability text, simple. If this card is on top of another, this specific Kuga card and forms that are on top of it gain +1/+1. One of the main things, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but one of the main things that I wanted to do when it comes to feeling like a Kamen Rider is that you get to transform. Whether your Kamen Rider is traveling or whether it hits the battlefield, you get to transform into a whole new form. And well, there's an example of how that form change comes into play. And underneath that ability text is, if this card is traveling, predict 2. Shout out to the ball in Discord for helping me out for helping me out a little bit on this, because they were saying, hey, if you can predict a card and Kuga can transform, wouldn't it be cool if you can predict what's coming, you transform to draw that prediction? And I think that's just in line for Yusuke to train, figure out what's coming next, and get ready for it. And then underneath that is the flavor text. I think one of my favorite parts was working on the flavor text. I think they're really cool. And I especially love Ultimate's flavor text. I think it's probably the coolest one I thought of. But yeah, there's that. And then on the far right is the power and defense. Power is 1, defense is 2. And I would tell you not to take this too seriously when it comes to the power defense thing, because that might be the only thing I can't get into flavor, because I know it'd be super weird for like Kamen Rider Jun from Drive, like the makeshift mock suit to defeat a Kuga. I know that might be a little silly, but still, this is how the power is. So everything else is pretty straightforward. Assists can only be played during the planning phase. Reactions can be played at any time. Attacking, pretty much, if you have the bigger power, you win the fight. But I try to make sure reactions do make you feel like Kamen Rider, where you can play a reaction, like someone throws a punch at you, react by like swiftly dodging. Someone tries to rider kick you, try to do a rider kick back. I try to make it like that. It does seem very magic on the surface, but I try to make it as flavorful as I can to Kamen Rider, mostly in terms of the reactions, because the assist cards kind of take a backseat, if I'm being honest. And the terms are also pretty self-explanatory as I try to make it. I think the only thing that I wanted to change was like the term to defeat or kill or destroy your enemy is finished, because in flavor of Kamen Rider, the Kamen Rider finished off this monster, or the Ranger finished off this monster, so that's how I wanted it. So with that out of the way, let's take a look into these other cards here. As I said, what does Pot of Greed do? Well, what does doing a thumbs up do? It lets you draw two cards because you're inspired. That's kind of like how my design philosophy was. Why is Kuga doing a thumbs up? Because he feels like he did a good job and now he's getting like more powerful because of it. Something like that. And so the other two are cards that you can easily digest. The middle one is an example of the card name being something different. So in the middle, Conrider Kuga, Mighty and New Hero, his name is Conrider Kuga, title Mighty, subtitle A New Hero. You can play this card as a resource for one experience, or you could play him. Either way. And he does have these other extra little text here, and I try to make it like Yusuke would. This is him. This is Yusuke Godai. It's not Yusuke Onodera, which again I think the flavor itself we'll get into. With that, let me finally introduce you guys to the main thing I've been waiting for so long with this, the core set of the Kamen Rider set, Super Tyson. um, so shout out to Don and Gia for doing a little bit of flavor with this. Shout out to Gia for making the promo art for this, because I want to introduce you guys to Super Tyson, the Alpha Project. I thought to myself, oh, this game is in alpha. It's not in beta just yet. It's still being tested out, so it's in alpha. And what flavor for Kamen Rider than the Alpha Project? And I just think that sounds cool. Gia made this for me to show off here, so thank you so much, Gia. It looks fantastic. It looks cool, and you can probably tell that these are the main 5 core Kamen Riders that you'll be able to play with. Now, when it comes to the lore, there's something that has to do in the background of this. I believe I was told that, like, in Vanguard, you play as kind of like a person looking over the battlefield. And here, I try to look into the Kamen Rider lore as best as I could. And ultimately, what I came down with is that you're playing as an avatar of the quarters who are overlooking the timeline. And now you get to summon these Kamen Riders to fight for you, unless they defeat you personally, So, with that, this with the promo image, you can just easily see who the main 3 are, plus 2 other surprises. So, these are the main 5. Let me introduce you to their decks and playstyles. These are the names of the decks. These are the themes. I try to name these as I could to go with their flavor, plus also to go with their mechanics. So Kuga's is Super Evolution, meaning his deck is obviously going to focus on transforming and form changes. Ichigo's is Let's Go Ichigo, which means you're most likely going to have to fight as Ichigo alone and try to power him up to finish off with the Rider Kick. 0-1, Everybody Rise, meaning he probably has to fight with other people alongside him. They rise up to the top and fight together. So I had a lot of back and forth with myself on who to even choose for these main 5. And the one thing I really wanted was 3 heroes and 2 villains. Because who doesn't want to play as a villain? And I didn't want to make it just 4 decks, because then it becomes really limited. And if this does happen to get more players, then and if you do happen to get more players, then hey, what if one of them wants to switch out from a different deck? So I think 5 is a good number to have starting with this. Surprisingly or not, it was really hard to choose the heroes because I was thinking of like Double and Decade and Geo at first because well, Decade has to do with cards. It has to be with cards, it's something like that. Or Geo because it's a little of everything. But at the same time, I wanted this to start out kind of simple. So I mean, kind of simple-ish when it comes to like the five decks fighting each other. But like in terms of it's Kuga. He's the first of the Heisei era. Ichigo is the first of the Showa era. 01, he's the first of the Reiwa era. It only makes sense. It only makes sense that these three heroes are the first ones because I'm not gonna choose just like I don't know Kuga, Agito, and Saber to start out with. I want these to be like popular choices, people that are cards that I know people would want to play, decks that I know would be interesting to start out with, and all that. So another fun fact is that whenever I choose a deck or a leader, I want them to I want them to be that representative for the season. So, disappointing or not, at least one representative for each season. So that means there most likely won't be an Ichigata deck. There most likely won't be a Vulcan deck. I'm not saying there won't be, but just it's not very likely because one rep from each season sounds pretty fair to me. Which pains me to say because as we go on to the villains, Evol is really friggin' cool, you know? Like, I love Evol to death. He's one of the coolest villains ever. Who doesn't want to play as Evol? Who doesn't want to end the world as their win condition, you know? Like, I love Evol. But that also means no build, no cross, no metal build, no rogue, no grease decks for a long time. If you know what I mean. But at the same time, I think Evil is the choice to represent build in this card game. So another fun fact about Evil is that he was kind of the start of the community choice because a few days ago I did a poll on Twitter about which of these villains do you think is the best, and I wrote out Kronos, Evil, and Toei. Of course, Toei won, but Evil just by a landslide beat out Kronos, which means whoever voted on that poll, you guys got to decide on Evil being the first villain to be part of this deck. And next up, Eternal. That now you guys might be thinking, oh wow, like the first three of the Reiwa era. Oh man, Evil, one of the biggest villains we've ever had, and now Eternal. Really, the movie villain? Well, there is a reason for it because one of the first decks I really wanted to have is a double representative. I really wanted something double related in this first in these first decks. And well, I already had the heroes, I already had Evil, so the only other thing I could think of is a villain. And I was looking through, and I was thinking about who could be a good villain to finish off these core five decks. And I remembered, oh wait, Eternal, duh. So that's pretty much how I went through with those. Now that I showed you the overview of these decks, how about we actually get into these decks? What do these decks do? What will you be doing as these Kamen Riders in this game? Ichigo, let's go Ichigo, with his theming being assists. This might be my most favorite card I designed. I just love having like number being thematic around the numbers, and since Ichigo is one, he has one XP plus one power, one defense, but he can also power up alongside that. And with Ichigo, you might think, wait, Ichigo doesn't have forms. How are you going to fight with him? Well, that's the thing. You don't need forms. You just need Ichigo and his foot to kick the monster with. You know, like, let's go Ichigo. Let's fight with him. But of course, Ichigo isn't alone. He also has Nigo and V3. There are other Showa cards in there. But I do want to preface that this isn't the only Showa rider that I was thinking for a deck. I was thinking even like Z Cross and Super One. So So just because there's an Ichigo deck with Nigo and V3 does not mean there won't be other Showa decks, because I do wanna have some kind of Showa stuff in here too. It's not just Heisei. So with Ichigo's main theme is that you want to power up Ichigo. You want to get him stronger. His deck abilities say, or his card ability says, that you can search for assist. You can help him out. And the very last line here on the right side is that it gives a little more flavor to the deck. So with Ichigo's deck, there are several versions of Ichigo, and I guess quote unquote lore wise, you can consider these AR versions of them. Shout out to Don for help with that. So it's not gonna be like super weird if like three Ichigos appear on the battlefield, because you can just say, oh, they're another Writer's World version of Ichigo, from Decade. Again, in flavor. And again, this is also like my favorite card that I designed. The balancing is still being figured out, and you guys probably saw earlier where the cards say that designs are not final, but I think the designs are balanced so far, but they can be changed. Like I said, if someone says, "Hey, this Ichigo card is too strong, make him have like one less ability," I'll put that into consideration and try to rebalance it. But for now, I think this is a pretty fair card. I think he's pretty fun, and I personally would love to play this deck once it's finished. Next up, 02. I do want to point out. Actually, first off, this is 01, Everybody Rise, with his theming being around summoning other legends. And I do want to point out, I know the name Kamen Rider 01, 02 sounds a little clunky, but I think logistic-wise, that's probably the best way to do it, because this isn't the only 02 card in this deck. There's also the Izu version of 02, So, so with Aruto, he always at least has Izu by his side, but he always tries to work together with Vulcan and Valkyrie. No matter what happens, he's always there for them. They're always there for him. Certain arcs aside, but the theming of togetherness is something I really wanted. So his theming is based around legends, and while he does have a path to get to 02, 02 itself is not the card that you can win with. I mean, you can win with it, but it's not the main focus of the deck. And as you can see, 02 does have, like, if you have other legends on your side of the field or the discard pile, then it gets stronger. And if you have Izu specifically, then it gets stronger. Just that theming of togetherness with other legends. And as a reminder, you can summon as many legends as you want, or you can play as many cards as you want, as long as you have enough XP. I don't think there's much else to say. I know I talked about Ichigo like forever, but 01 is pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, real quick, you guys may have noticed the little triangle thing that's in the middle of the card, towards the far right of where it says like Form 4 and stuff. Those are just the rarities. Those are subject to change. Purple means it's like the highest rarity. I believe the rarities I have are common, uncommon, rare, and legendary. I think legendary might be changed though, just because it's a little confusing. But yeah, maybe even premium. I don't know. But either way, that's the rarity. Purple means it's the highest rarity. White means it's a common. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Next up. Oh, this one I've been waiting for a long time. I really love what's coming next. So, maybe I should play the Kuga theme here for this one. Kuga Super Evolution, with his theming being around form changes. So, I wanted Ultimate to be the card you summon onto the battlefield. This will be, oh my gosh, he summoned Ultimate. We gotta figure this out right now. What are we gonna do? This is Ultimate. So, every single form of Kuga does have a card here, not counting Rising Ultimate because it would stinky. But otherwise, this is focusing specifically on Yusuke Godai in his lore, and I think in his lore he didn't use Rising Ultimate like in the main show. So with Kuga, he gets to form change quite a bit, and a lot of those forms get to like stack on top of each other, and they get more powerful along the way. But with Ultimate, This is the card where it has a special ruling where the -5 means you have to sacrifice 5 of those experience points in your backline. You got to throw them into the discard pile to summon Ultimate Kuga, to form change into Ultimate Kuga, because he's really strong and he gets to he gets to do quite a bit. Now I'm not saying he's impossible to beat, because trust me, like the early version of this card was almost impossible to beat. Like one of the ability texts was, this card cannot be affected by anything except reactions, which means, oh, you can't even fight him. No, of course you can fight him. He fought Dagova, so you can fight him. And in flavor, just like that Dagova fight at the end of Kuga, Ultimate plus one more legend on the battlefield are surviving. They're the only ones left. Quite like the show. And this was the one flavor text I personally really liked. I just think this flavor text is just so cool. I love it. And I did have help with quite a bit of this, so if you guys are watching, that helped me. Thank you. That's Ultimate. But let's get into the villains. Eternal. I am Eternal, with his theming being reactions. So if you guys watch the movies, both the Eternal movie and Double Forever A through Z, I believe Eternal doesn't have too much you can do with him, but he has enough where you can, I think you can think of enough mechanics and how to play as him. Because, oh my gosh, wait, did I get his name wrong? He's Katsumi Daido, right? I really hope I got that right. Kamen Rider Eternal. Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, okay, he's Katsumi Daido. So Katsumi is able to fight one-on-one. Especially if you've seen the Eternal movie, he does that quite a bit. So he wants to get up close and personal with as many fights as he can. But that also means he's good at fighting. So he has a lot of reaction themes. Now, these reactions aren't going to be like, oh, you end the turn, you cannot fight, your opponents can't do anything to this. Like, I want his theme to be like, oh, you threw a punch at me, well, I'm gonna jab to the left and dodge it underneath you. That kind of fighting, that kind of like fist fighting that you would expect from Eternal. And while it is mostly focused on Eternal, he does have a few of his Never group. Like, there is a Heat Dopant card, there is like a Metal Dopant card, there's a Luna, there's a Trigger Dopant card. So it's not just Eternal, but all those other cards support him. They all have to do something with him, because this focus specifically is I Am Eternal. It focuses on him. He gets to fight. And because he's part of Never, it's really hard to take him down. So his card is also really hard to take down, but I think that's in flavor. The other Eternal cards aren't as strong as this one, because this is the leader type. You can't use it as experience. So I feel like this card should be the card to represent Eternal. The other cards obviously do too, but this is like the Eternal card. Oh yes, so this is the card I also want to introduce a new mechanic just for this game, because again, in flavor, I think you guys really want to know, well, what else makes a Kamen Rider a Kamen Rider? This mechanic called Last Stand. Only certain cards have this. Only some of like the best, most powerful cards have this, because you can't keep a good Kamen Rider down, whether they're a hero or a villain. These Kamen Riders get right back up and they keep fighting. So Last Stand is a mechanic where you have to reach a certain condition to activate Last Stand, and it activates automatically. So for Eternal specifically, it says if you use 3 reaction cards on Eternal, then Last Stand immediately activates and he has to return to the leader zone. And I think, again, if you keep using these cards, then Eternal is safe for another turn, and then you get to bring him back out on the battlefield. And finally, the deck I'm most excited for, the most I'm excited to talk about. This is the one I've been waiting all week to talk about. Evol, End of the World, with his theming being planning. So Evol, I think is the most linear deck because these other cards are kind of open ended. They do have ways to win. There are ways I expect you that you can play with these. But you can open them up to other ways too, because obviously you can just keep fighting and beating down your opponent. You can mix and match cards. You can find other win conditions if you're able to. You can do that. But with Evol, I believe his is the most linear because he always has a plan. He has been planning things for 15 years in the season of build. So with him, his linear path is he starts out as phase one or bloodstock because there will be a bloodstock card. So he can start as either of those, and then he goes through all his phases, going into black hole, being able to gather the Pandora panels to activate Pandora's box, to summon Pandora's tower, and then end the world. And I believe that card is called End of the World, the End of the World. And it says like if you do this, this, and this, if these conditions are met, you win the game. Congrats, you've ended the world. So this I think is just one of the coolest things. I love Evil so much, and I know he had to have a really good card, and trust me, he this card specifically, Evil Phase One, was actually a lot worse. But before I revealed it on the stream, he was like 6 XP for like barely any like power and defense and anything like that. Like all that. But his thing is that he wants to continue growing into black hole and then getting all the rest of the stuff. And again, I try not to make it super broken, but I feel like this might need some fine tuning because otherwise, what's stopping you from playing like, oh, draw 3 cards and then you outdraw your deck, you win. So yeah, but otherwise, again, planning. And this is the one deck where the only legends in this deck are just Evil. There is no like hazard smashes. There are no Hokuto Crow Trio. There is no Rogue. This is specifically just Evil. You're only playing as him. You have to figure out his plan, and you end the world. With his theming of planning is that in the main phase or the planning phase, he has a lot of cards where you put them face down on the back line, and then those cards specifically say if you meet these conditions, then immediately activate this face down card. Stuff like that. So you yourself have to think about how to get around an entire round of your opponents before the next plan of your phase activates. Just like that. And those are the main 5 decks. So those are the overviews and a little bit of the intros about how you get to play them. So with all that, what is actually next for the game? I do have kind of a roadmap. The first thing is obviously after a lot of testing, after a lot of fine tuning and tweaking these, I will release it online, whether it's through Tabletop Sim or someone on Ballin's Discord server also told me about a web browser that we can upload these cards to and play them. So that's my plan. Just get it out there, I just get these 5 decks on Tabletop Sim. I get them out there, and even Hawk Killies mentioned, hey, we should do like a test tournament to see how this works out. And of course, if this works out, I would love to make videos about it, like a how to play, and then just like this card game in action, So that's just the beginning. If the reception is positive, and there are enough downloads, if there's a lot that I can see going through with this, because if I'm being honest, my expectations are only like medium wise. I'm not expecting this to be huge or anything, but there are just in cases, So if this does get enough downloads, if this does get enough positive reception, if people say, "Oh, hey, it's the card game Marcosatsu made. It's actually pretty cool. It's actually pretty fun," then the next step is to commission card art. As I said, all these images are just promo images from Toei and their shows and movies and all that. But I would love to commission artists to have these card arts on the cards themselves, and maybe even have a full art card. I love full art cards, and I would love to have that as part of it too. So there's that. And when I say card art, I also mean like it doesn't just have to be digital because I love what Pokemon does, where they do like clay models and take pictures of them. Toy photography is another thing I absolutely would love to accept because I know there are a lot of toy photographers out there that do really really great shoots, and those look great. I would love to put those on cards so you can take a picture of your figures. You can do a little doodle as long as it's colored, digitally. You can I don't know, do an interpretive dance, and if I can put it on a card, sure, I'll do that. Use Steam, what is it, Source Filmmaker as models for them, and then I would love to do all that. And let's skip the middle one real quick. But if this game does get super popular, if this game is actually worth putting out there, yes, I would love to turn it into an actual paper trading card game you can pick up on the shelf, play at your house, play at your LGS, all that stuff. But obviously, I know a lot of people had said this even in this stream alone. A lot of people have been mentioning, but what about copyright? Yes, I have everything planned, okay? I have thought of pretty much everything I possibly could for what I'm thinking of. But we'll get to that later. Because I already had something in plan. I already had something in mind. I already figured that if we still if this still keeps going, hey, I already have an idea for the next expansion. Super Tyson, next stage. Ooh, I love this. I like um oh man, so where do I even begin with this? Where do I start? So let's see here. Let's see. There's Gaim, there's Blade, there's Storius, and there's Kronos. So Kronos and Gaim were obvious picks. They were from the start. They just had to be. They just had to be decks. They just had to be there. Kronos. Since I had that in the poll. And Evil won. Evil was in the first set. So the next one obviously is gonna be Kronos. and and Kronos is also a bit of my own pet project. I personally really wanted Kronos in the deck, so I put Kronos in there. I Kronos is my pet deck. He's the one I want to have the most fun with. And he is also having like the most like work around because in the testing stages, I had a card that said end the turn. I had a card that said your opponents cannot react to this card. I had a card that said skip the next turn, and those are not fun. No one wants to not play their cards. Those just, I threw those out the window. There will be a time stopping mechanic, but it won't be as simple as you end the turn. Something like that. So there's Kronos, and of course their deck names under all that too. Kronos, Time in Your Hands, it's a cool name. Storius, I'll admit, I thought Saber needed representation, like kind of the most in this card game. Not like the most, but kind of the most. I knew I wanted something Saber related in here. And I already thought of the two heroes before the villains. So when I thought of a villain, I was like, okay, fine. I'll just I'll choose Storius, I guess. Like, no creativity. Oh, that sounds cool for a card game. Gia even friend Gia even made a joke of like, hey, for Storius's deck, his alternate win condition is B. Nothing at all because he's not creative. Like that's his whole thing. He's just against creativity. So No alternate win condition. It just says keep playing the game. So of course that's just a joke, but yeah, there's Storiest last story, and plus I think Stories is kind of a kind of a cool design. So why not? But give Saber some love. For the heroes, Blade was also one I had a tough time deciding because it was either going to be Ryuki, Blade, or Decade, and one of the card based writers. And for Ryuki, I have a plan for him in the next expansion. It won't be anything big, but I do have a plan for him, which I think is pretty cool. Can I say it? Should I say it? Yeah, I'll just say it. For the next villain, I do have Ryuga. It's either going to be Ryuga or Odin for the next villain representative, and that would be the Ryuki deck. I think those are pretty cool, and I would just love to have those. So with Ryuga out of the way, I was also considering Decade, but I already have something in mind for Decade. Like the other idea I had was Violent Emotion Decade as the villain, or Dark Decade, but I think those would be a little too weird. I know the players would most likely just want to play as Decade himself and not like Violent Emotion or Dark Decade or anything like that. Dark Decade maybe, but he's only just in the game, so there's not much I can think of there. But anyway, so the next choice would be Blade, and then when I was thinking about Blade, I was like, okay, which Blade representative? Because Garen is a really cool one, and Mitsuki, or the the other one, the green one. Oh my gosh, did I forget his name already? But Mitsuki is pretty cool. And Chalice was also another one that was really close to getting it. Chalice was like, you can't see it, but my fingers are really close. They're almost touching each other. It was like this close to being chosen as the main rep for Blade. But the only thing that stood out, that won out for me for Blade as the main rep, was, well, his win condition and his story, his show is so interesting and out there that I just had to choose him over Chalice. I think Chalice could have had the same thing, but I think it's more in flavor for Kenzaki to have, or Blade to have, this certain win condition in mind. And I think he might be the only one who could have this win condition in mind. Again, I'm not saying everything right off the bat, otherwise we'd be here forever, but just as a teaser, I did have something in mind for him. And Gaim, it's Gaim. Obviously, he has to have a rep. Obviously, it has to be Gaim. I was considering Baron at one point and even Zangetsu, but I think Gaim having Kiwami is probably the what players would want the most. But with Gaim introduces a whole new mechanic called stage cards, and his thing, which I'm planning, which is already like in the works, is that his mechanic is that these stages would be the win condition. You would keep going through all these sections of Zawami City, whether it's Yggdrasil or underneath the Zawami tunnels or on a dance stage, and then ultimately you become Kiwami, and then ends up in the new planet that Gaim gets into at the end. So I think that's really interesting. And there are a bit of testing for stages for Eternal and Evol, but I'll see about those. I'll see about those. And now that the biggest thing that you can see on the screen, like what the heck's this, is what I was mentioning earlier, is that this is going to be community driven. So the fifth deck, I want you guys to decide. And I even considered, hey, if this does get popular, you guys get to decide two of them. So it won't just be 5 decks; it could be 6 of them if this does get popular, and you guys get to vote for 2 of them. And I think that'd be pretty cool. And I don't have a slide for this, but I do have other ideas in mind for a third expansion. I do have ideas for a Super Sentai, Ultraman, and Garo set. I already thought of the representatives for Super Sentai and Ultraman. Like I already have those like pretty much locked in. That these are the decks I want for these series. So So those already in mind. I do have things that I want to do. I do have like mechanics and alternate win conditions and riders. I do have so much in mind for these. I I guess verbally, if I can give a tease without having photos, sure, I'll tell you guys. Let me see. Oh yeah, so I made a whole document for this, and I showed a few people already, and like this doc's like 16 page or not 16 pages. It's like nearly 20 pages long. Of just like explaining everything. It's almost like the Bible for this game. So let's see. Other ones I do have in mind are Gatak, Ryuga, Zoronos. Uh, if people wanted enough, I would consider an expansion just of build stuff, but I don't know. That probably won't end up too good. I have Ultra Seven in mind. Ultraman Orb Dark, Don Momotaro, Common Sentai Go Rider for like a joke deck, um, Dark Buster, Conrad Falcon was another one that I was considering instead of Storius, but oh well. Chase is one that I really absolutely want. I would love to design something like that. And with the drive rep, I was considering Heart at 1.2, but I think Chase would be better. Necrom, and lastly, Evil slash Live. I think Live and Evil have a really interesting mechanic. Um, that's a deck that Gia uh, threw an idea at me and that I really, really want to make true because I think he would introduce a new special kind of way to play, and I really want to do that. So so those are like a tease of the ideas I have so far, and and again, like I have certain cards made, but I don't want to show them off just yet. So let's get into. Um, oh wait, I do have teases. Oh, whoops! I probably should have remembered that. So these are the cards I had in mind for the next stage expansion. These are the leaders at least. Um, Again, they're not final. I think Chronos might change the most. I don't even think this is. I don't think this is gonna be like near what Chronos does, except for like the first one. But Gaim and Blade are pretty locked in. Not entirely, but like these are pretty much what I want them to do. Blade especially, like I think I want his story to be really sad. I know that sounds weird for a card game, but I want him to be like a really sad way to win the game. So there's no way you can tell what that would be just from his card alone, but it's something. So so yeah. Um, the only reason I want Chronos to change is because there's a new mechanic, a new keyword I was thinking of for him specifically that I might just change out. So yeah, um, that is everything I have for the next stage of discussion. So I have been reading your guys' comments slightly or like a little bit. Is but I am waiting to answer questions towards the end. That way I can answer pretty much everything. But I was also hoping that this whole hour long thing would answer everything for you because I did try to consider every question that would be asked. So so yeah. Um, this is what I'm thinking of for now. And let's get into some test cards. I guess this is some like behind the scenes stuff. Uh, Jeez. So like I said, the like I said, the very first card I designed had fan art, and that felt icky. So I after that I just didn't use fan art anymore. But this cross one is the first card I designed, just to show you guys how it was. So cross again, the very 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 first card I ever designed, the first card I ever thought up of. Yeah, that's even like the test template I had. Like that that's the very first thing that I had in mind. This would be Conrad Cross the card, and this was also before I even thought of like the five decks that I was thinking of. So you can see it's very much a test card. Like the text is in all caps. The flavor text is a little wonky, and the template is a little not finished. But yeah, just some behind the scenes trivia. This is the first card I designed, and then these next two are the cards that I worked alongside with. Like there's Geo build armor, just to see if I can work around like these forms, and then pause was the first like reaction card I worked on, so I can see how this mechanic would really work. So yeah, unfortunately, since we do have an Evol rep, there won't be any actual cross cards. Um, Excuse me. I did have an idea for a cross deck, but as of right now, I do not have any plans whatsoever to make anything more than just Evol for build. Um, okay, so I guess that's enough trivia. What's next? The big goal is what you guys have been asking. Yes, I know. I would want to crowdfund this to make it into an actual paper TCG. The thing is, of course, I can't use Kamen Rider. That's a copyrighted IP. It's from Toei. It's all the way across the sea. I personally cannot use Kamen Rider. This is a fan game. At most, I'm expecting a cease and desist, and if that happens, we had a good run. This was a fun way to waste an hour of my afternoon. This was cool. I like this. I like seeing you guys interact. That's cool. But otherwise, obviously, I can't use Kamen Rider. So I would just change it into something else, into like OCs or something. I don't know. Like I would even make that community driven. Like, hey, do you want your OC put into this card game? Let's make some card art for it. Let's change around the names. Let's change around the actual card art. And hey, there you go. Whole the same card game, just with a different face. It's pretty much the same thing. I mean, I think I could even keep the name Super Tyson. So I think it would be okay. I know you guys have been asking forever. I know. I already thought of it. I know. Okay. So with all of that, my main goal outside of making it an actual cardboard game is I want this to happen. I want this specific card to come out. This is my personal goal. If this card is able to make it out into the public, or at least into like tabletop sim or whatever, if this test card is able to make it out, I will be happy. This is the one I want. I would love to have an Omagio card. Just look at how crazy that looks. I want this so bad. And that's why I was saying there's no deck, or there's no decade deck. That's why I'm saying like, oh, I didn't really want Geo this early. I want Omagio to come out as a third expansion to pretty much just end it all. Because look at how crazy the text is. Look at how powerful he looks. And honestly, friend Lucy, friend Calvin mentioned that I should change the border to gold, because I should. This was just really, really friggin' cool, and I want this to happen. So please, if you guys want to support this game to have this specific card out, I would love to. I was even thinking of a 1v3 format to take down Omagio. Like, I would love for this to happen. And if this does become like a physical card game, I would even like blow it up. I would just I would love to to make like a what is a commander size card of like Omagio. Even the ability text, like I just knew from the moment oh yeah, Omagio in the game, this has to be his ability. He hits the battlefield, you destroy everything on your side. Every legend ever on the field has to fight you. And if that isn't the most coolest Omagio thing I could think of, alongside winning the game after all those fights, so cool. So cool. with all that being said, that was Super Tyson. If you guys have any questions, please just please say it out now. I feel like I said everything I could. I feel like I did answer pretty much everything I could think of. But if there's anything else more you guys want to bring up, then hey, you go ahead. I'm listening. I'm just stalling for a bit as we as the chat catches up to the stream. Yada yada yada. So yeah, that was Super Tyson. It took a lot of planning. I did have a lot of help from my friends, from Discord servers, from one of my best friends who's been playing card games longer than I have. Like I played them as a baby. He played them when he was a fetus, and he was still able to help me out on this. I think one thing I would love to change later on is maybe the card face, because yeah, it is too much a bit like Magic the Gathering, but that's only because that's what I'm most comfortable with. But if anybody wants to, like, I don't know, be in a quote unquote team with me, then yeah, please just then please, I would love to get any kind of constructive criticism, any kind of ideas. Please just let me know, and I'll be there to hear it. So let's get to some questions. When do you think the tabletop sim version will be out? I don't know. Like I said, this is still in alpha. It is the alpha project. I'm still getting things done. If anything, I'm still getting certain decks ready. Like the only quote unquote complete deck I have so far is Kuga's. Everything else I'm still trying to get together. But once everything is done, yes, there will be an announcement. Yes, there will be a video or a community tab that says, "Hey, you can play the game on tabletop sim now. Go for it." And then you can like email me, DM me on Twitter, Discord me, I guess, about like suggestions or whatever. Would you consider doing packs of official, unofficial series like G and Akiba Ranger? Yes, so Akiba Ranger was one I was thinking of too, alongside Go Rider, just to be silly. G, I don't know about the silliness, but he does sound cool. If people want him, we'll get G. Oh yeah, so if you guys are asking questions about the video, then the video will go up once the stream ends, and you guys can just like skim through it. Let me see. The build cross evol deck will have collect all the bottles to boost the boss? Question mark. Not entirely. There are like bottles and other gimmicks in there, like the Pandora panels, but they're not. But the Pandora panels are the only ones meant to win the game with. I'd love if the card looked like Vanguard cards at least. Maybe have the same layout, but the text box is transparent or full art. Yeah, like I said, if anybody would love to help out and give suggestions on how even the card looks, then yeah, I'm all for it. I don't want it to be just Magic the Gathering with Kamen Rider. That's why I said earlier, on the surface, it seems like Magic, but like the mechanics and how the game plays is more Kamen Rider in flavor than anything else. Question: how does form changing work, if that is even a thing in this? Well, you can see it says Form 1 right there on the Koa card, but form changes work as if you have the experience or the resource for it, you get to put form on top of another card. They don't need to travel or anything; they just instantly be able to transform. So far, I'm thinking they can only transform during the planning phase, but Kamen Riders transform all the time during just like battles, so I'm still thinking about that one. They might be able to transform in terms of reactions, because I do have a couple of cards that say you can transform as a reaction. You can transform at instant speed, and that's how I'm thinking of balancing it. But that's, for the most part, that's how form changes are. You just put one card on top of the other, whether it's Form 1 on top of Form 1, or Form 1 on top of Form 0, or Form 2 on top of Form 1. Anything like that. Will there ever be a modern Yu-Gi-Oh scenario in terms of text on certain cards? The most text heavy is Omagio. I specifically made sure Omagio had the most amount of text on it. But if it ever gets to Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm stopping this game and leaving, because I give up after that. Not really, but like, I just hope there isn't like whole paragraphs worth of cards or of text on cards. Well, there'd be some tag team themed decks like Two Hoppers, Emo and Parad, Revi and Vice. Yes, so the evil slash live deck, I'm planning to be the first deck where you have two leaders that you can switch out between evil and live, or I'm thinking they can be double sided. One format idea I had for this was to be a tag team kind of game, two versus two, where it's two riders fighting against two riders, which I personally thought was a cool idea. But that kind of like tag team deck or tag team format, it's an idea so far, but I don't think I thought of anything in stone just yet. Again, ideas. I even have writers that I think could tag team, but I don't know about that. Will there be some metal heroes? If anything, it might just be Gavan, Sharavan, and Shider. If anything, probably just Gavan because Metal Heroes aren't the most popular. I know they have their fans. I'm a fan of Metal Heroes too, but hey, it's I guess that's kind of how it is. I would really love a Gavan deck or maybe even a B Fighter deck. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd have a blue SWAT deck, but I know for certain that would not be popular whatsoever. There would not, I don't think anyone would ever play a blue SWAT deck. Have you considered more specific types slash keywords for the creatures? It's good to have the option to focus on archetypes like Dopan, Imogen, yada yada. Yeah, like I said, like a lot of these cards do have like archetypes like hero and villain, but those don't play into the card game just yet. In the future, down the line, I would add other archetypes, like you said, like Imogen and and other monster types too, but I do want to keep this simple and I don't want to keep this like overly complicated. Well, that's I guess that's the same thing. So I want to keep this simple. Hero type, it's a legend slash creature. That's all you need to know for now. So that's basically that's basically all I'm thinking here. With mixing power rider like double O's build Geats, do you have any idea for their mechanics? Um, I with mixing power riders like double O's, do you have any ideas for? So yeah, I do have an ideas for an O's deck. I do have an idea for a Geats deck, but Geats would obviously been the number one choice for like the first five decks, but Geats is too new. As of this video, there's only like some episodes. Like it's still too new. I don't have anything to work with. I mean, I guess I could if I really wanted to, but I'm gonna wait till like the season's over, or at least until like the final form is shown. And then yeah, with O's, I do have an idea. It might be a little complicated, which is why I'm not too into it. Which is why it might not even be an O's deck. It might just be a birth deck. It might just be an Ankh deck, but Ankh isn't a Kamen Rider, and I know people would prefer to play Kamen Riders than monsters or Kaijin. But yeah, the O's one is in mind. I'm just waiting on that. What a Garo deck be based around only one version of Garo, like Koga, or maybe incorporate team synergy with having Raiga, Koga, and Taiga on the field. The Garo one I'm thinking is just Koga. For that one, I was thinking it'd be a hodgepodge of other Toku, so it would be both there would be like one Koga Garo deck, there would be like one Legend Hero Guan Yu deck, there would be one more. I'm even thinking Metal Heroes for that one. It would just be a mix of all of them. Will you add Kamen Rider Gates to the game in the future? Maybe. Will there be a joke deck like Powerful Rangers or Masked Rider as references to American adaptations? I would love to. If we get to that point, I'd be happy. I would love to. I would love to make a joke deck like the unsets from Kamen Rider. I think or from Magic. I think that'd be really funny. Well, you make some secret rare cards, like a secret rare card where there's different Kamen Rider forms. Yes, so a lot of these Kamen Rider forms can be in different rarities. Like there's a rare Kuga card, there's a common Kuga card, there's a super rare Kuga card. So, and I tried not to make this limited to just one single rider having just one single card because there are AR versions of riders too. I think that's pretty much everything I'll answer for now. With that being said, if you're just tuning in, this will be fully viewable on the channel once the stream is over, and it will be over in just a bit. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you on the field playing these cards and summoning these awesome, awesome, awesome Kamen Riders. I'll definitely be playing Evil. Good night, every pony.
Ugh.